Alright, so there we go. I've reduced it to what I think is a better number. And you can look at it now. It looks pretty good. Okay, let's look at maybe that screen. As I said earlier, this is kind of a complex thing. And how would I handle that? Again, it's in an enclosed area, just like before. So it's another enclosed area within an enclosed area. So there's two of these enclosed areas. Always duplicate. That way you always have an original to work off if you're. And always make it make sense. For this area, actually this is a little bit higher, okay? And that would be a lot better to do, and it ends up with a little bit more detail. There we go. That area is secured. I need this a little bit more space in this area for those buttons. And I got my resources or my reference image on the other monitor, so I constantly look back at it. It's just the general idea, I think, because you're looking at the same reference source as I am. So in that area right there, we have buttons, and guess what? I just made that button already. But there is a recessed area in that area too. I showed you how to do that here. So I'm not going to be modeling this whole thing for you. You know what I mean? This is something that you need to accomplish too. Now what I hate is this. Let's say you got this and it's sitting here looking all nice and pretty, but really if you look at the reference image, this has a gap around the outside edge, and that gap is the devil in the details thing. So that's very important that you match that up. Since these are two separate meshes, let's get rid of all the edge loops in this area. And let's look at a recess that would be circle. Okay, like a circular indent. Okay, again, try to get as many of the edge loops around the area out of the equation. And then insert some edge loops that make sense. So I'm going to be focusing on that one, here, and here. Oops. Now if I messed up and I let go, there's a nifty application called slide edge tool. And by using the middle mouse button, I can slide that edge. Same with all these. Now by sliding the edge, I'm not destroying the model. So I'm triple clicking on those, sliding the edge just a little bit. See how its overall shape is not moving? Now if I had used the move tool, however, that would destroy that outer shape. Great. There we go. Okay, now how do you get it to a circle, right? Okay. Extrude it. Take this face, push it down. Let's get this out of the way now. Insert an edge loop here and here. And take the face at the bottom and extrude it one more time. And bring it in, just like that. So the outside is pretty much braced. The inside, however, if I go to smooth it, will become a circle. G on the keyboard will support that change. And now I got a whole beating thing of geometry that I have to get rid of. So here's a faster way. Grab a section. Now a section around the piece of geometry that doesn't affect, like this area right here, you don't want to do that in. Control right click to edge loop utilities, to edge loop. That'll pick all the edge loops in that area, and then I can edge loop and delete. Now you notice though, it didn't like some of the one edge loops, so sometimes just doing this is better. Alright, so now I was able to reduce a whole bunch of geometry all at once that way. Now what you see is something that makes more sense. That little detail right there is very important. If we soften the edge of the normals, we might get away with not doing it a smooth again, but trust me when I say, you know, the extra smooth is definitely worth it. Just make sure you reduce the number of polygons around the outside before you do another one, and try to stay away from doing that over and over. And that's what's nice about having these models broken up into sections, because this one's high res now and this one's low res, and the high res isn't affecting the rest of the model. And that's why I model the way I do. Okay, now that screen part, as I promised. Okay, not too bad. It's just a pattern. So first off, look at what the pattern is, and it's these tubes. So, and it looks like there's tubes and then there's boxes. So let's try to model that out. Okay, so here we go. Crack at this pattern. Okay, so I start out with something like that, and I also need a tube. So I duplicate that one, grab the face on both sides, mesh smooth it. Oh, sorry. Extrude it. So I undid that and extruded it only on the top, or the two ends, and then mesh smooth it. There we go. Now we just have a cylinder, and they're both kind of like the same size. Now you want these to have as least possible geometry because you want to be able to change their size. So these right here, the ones that make up the length of it, we're going to get rid of those. And I would say this is going to be a little bit smoother, so let's smooth it one more time and then repeat that process. You could have smoothed it twice and then got rid of double the edge loops, or just always keep the reduction real time. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing it, rather than make it part of the workflow, just do it when you did it, rather than go back like I did. Like let's say I wanted to reduce some of these other pieces. Well, rather than do that, I'll do it ahead of time, and that way I don't have to keep going back in my workflow. Okay, so pipeline, super important. So I think this is going to be at a 45 degree. I don't want to ruin these two pieces, so shift duplicate them, move them over to the side, and I'm going to take this one and put it at a negative 45. It doesn't look like a 45 in the image, so that might be a 30. So let's try that. Yep, it was a 30. Okay, so we make this a little bit longer. In order to make it longer now that it's on an angle, we have to go in and choose Object. An object under the Scale tool now allows me to do this. Okay. I'm going to try to establish a square of this. So I need to make this pretty big and then pretty skinny also. Okay, a little bit longer. I know that's going to look a little weird, but that's alright. Okay, object mode in this one also allows me to move correlating to the object. So now I can move that at an angle. Okay, Shift D allows me to now move that a little bit. And then let's go Shift D, 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 Shift D, Shift D. Keep going out for the length of the model. Okay, there we go. We got a pattern. Pretty cool, right? Okay, let's take this and move it down. We could probably grab all the objects like that, and it would be a lot easier. Now, how do I get each one to fit? Well, very easy. Very easy as in time consuming as all get up, but you get the general idea, I think. So we can't have anything poking out. So what would be better is to make this box just a little bit bigger, or this one a little bit smaller. So it makes it so it's easier to not do a lot of work. So if I tuck this into here, it will cover over any flaws. Okay, here's a better idea. Get it to the general location here. Shrink it down. Now I just did a fast shrink in that area, and I want backface culling on because sometimes in other programs, just keep a heads up, if you negatively scale something, you could negatively scale that into a backface. So keep in mind, keeping backface on is really handy, especially knowing that these shells are all not like this. If you see something like this in another program, I'll try to mimic it. If you see that, where it doesn't look right, this one looks bad, this one looks good, stop yourself, because you have a thing called backface or normal change or reversing of normals. So that affects your workflow huge, because when you go to transfer high to low, if you have a negative piece of geometry there, yeah, that's going to look all black and it's going to be super bad. Alright, so I'm going to do this across this pattern, and then now that you get the general gist of what I did, you just do the circle ones the other way. So I'm going to make the students do that because I think it's important, rather than me do it all for you. Throw you under the bus a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to finish out this pattern and I'll meet you back. Think smarter, not harder. I love that saying. So here I got this pattern, and I need the cylindrical version of this pattern. Well, what would be simpler is probably taking these, and let's think about scaling them. Let's scale them negatively in 1. How about a -1 here? Okay. Let's also think about extruding them. So it might be quicker that rather than try to lay all these pieces back out, the tube versions of them, is just to take and select all the tops and bottoms, or hit extrude, and then mesh smooth. There we go. Was that not more simple? And sure, there might be some things to repair, like I see a couple of them that are poking out. Maybe I can adjust this. But we could do this: mesh separate, modify center pivot. This will center the pivot along every one of these. The problem with them now, though, is they don't have the ability to go in and go to object space anymore. So you're going to have to look for another way to scale them. So once you combined and then broken apart, you lose the ability to have a local space. That's the only bad thing is. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use something maybe like this, though. I think normal spacing on these will probably work out just fine. Well, There we go. Normals and average. So there it gives you the ability to move them again. You're just going to have to move them at component level. Again, I don't see many students diving into this area. You know, I've taught Maya for, geez, I want to say 18 years? No, 15 years. Yeah, at least 15 years. And in the hardcore classes, you know, the ones that you get in front of students, and you know, you get to wander around and looking at their desktops and seeing the mistakes they might be making, you don't see them using these tools very often. So I guess that gives me the luxury of like what I teach, is because I got to see which tools they don't use, and therefore it makes it a little bit more powerful. How can I get them to use that tool? Well, let's make a repetitious pattern that'll take them 8 hours to do. And here's a sadder truth. If you don't if you don't make them use the tool, they might never find the tool, because some students don't explore those tools, believe it or not. Not on their own. Once you start getting into the point where you're exploring tools on your own without an instructor saying, hey, make a repetitious pattern that takes 8 hours, you have now crossed the barrier of realizing that the instructor was there just to make you use the tools. Alright, look at that. Isn't that cool? Okay, it's a good pattern. It's made of a whole bunch of horribly complex things. I'm going to now combine it all together. And there we go. So that, in a nutshell, is how you can do a pattern and keep it low res. So obviously this whole block right here, it would be, and you can check your polygon count. $119,000 triangles in this area. So this is not a game level design. This is more of a CG design. But what we're going to do is, once we get the entire model done, is look at a way to transfer all that information over to maybe just a few faces. Alright, so it's coming. So keep plugging away at this, and let's go on to the next video.